She took the herbs reluctantly and gave him. A few minutes later, Nwachukwu, who couldn't talk or walk, stood up and sat on his bed and shouted, "Mommy, please, can you give me some food to eat?" His mum rushed from the other room to see who had just spoken to her. She met Nwachukwu sitting on the bed, and trying to stand up and walk to her, his coughing had stopped. A lot of the people who heard about his healing rejoiced and celebrated. But when they heard that it was Amara who proffered the solution, they doubted and said it was nothing but a coincidence. Some advised Nwachukwu's mother to pray fervently, else the sickness that left her son may return in a more terrible way because of Amara's bad luck. The villagers appreciated the healing but didn't appreciate the healer. They didn't believe anything good could come out of Amara. Nwachukwu healing was supposed to be the breakthrough for Amara, but the people rejected her. They didn't believe she was worthy of the honor of healing a fly. Talk more of healing successfully a mysterious illness that was believed to be inflicted by evil spirit, and it's incurable. Amara and her grandmother didn't try to justify that Amara was the one who gave the solution to Nwachukwu's illness. They left the villagers with their unbelief. But Amara remained in isolation with her grandmother, building and developing herself to master her healing gift. Nobody sought after her, they belittled her, but she cared less about it. The best she could do was to keep developing herself, hoping for a day when her gift would speak for itself. Years went by and everything went on as usual until a sudden epidemic swept through Ukwo and the villagers despaired. It swept the entire village and claimed many lives, both young and old. The king called for a meeting with the wise men, the traditionalists, and the elders to inquire from them a possible solution. There was not found among them any man who had answers to the problem. The increased rate of mortality was alarming. Humans were dying like insects. No one knows the origin of the illness, and no one was found who could demystify or decipher a solution to it. The entire village was alarmed. The ailment has affected everyone in one way or the other. They turned to the king, but he had no solution. The king turned to his most trusted traditionalists, but they also had no solution either. In their desperation, they turned to Amara, the rejected one. And the king summoned her. It was her first time stepping out of the corridors of her grandma's house. She wasn't used to any of the faces she saw around the palace. It was the king who summoned her, but in her heart, she still felt like an outcast because of the stigma that had lingered on her image before the people. "Long live my king." Amara saluted with head down. She did exactly as her grandmother instructed her to do before the king. It was obvious from her body language that she was not comfortable. "Come over here, my daughter," the king spoke to her. It was his first time looking at her very closely. She didn't look to him like all the things that were reported against her. "Amara, was it true that you healed a boy some years ago from a mysterious illness such as the one that has befallen our land today?" "No, my king, I didn't heal him. I only gave a solution to his illness and it worked. I give all the glory to the Almighty who created the universe and gave us herbs to remedy for our human disorder." "You know the calamity that has befallen our land, my daughter. What can you do about it? What can you do to save our people?" The king spoke with a heavy heart. "My grandmother, as I spoke to you, is afflicted by the same illness, and I'm already on my toes to find her a remedy. Give me 3 more days, my king, and let's see if the universe holds for us an answer to this which has claimed many lives of my people." The king was happy when he heard Amara referring to the villagers as her people. After all they've done to her, she still has a good heart toward them. The king permitted her to take her time, but he urged her to do whatever she could within her power to find the solution to the deadly illness regardless. Amara left the palace that day happy because, for the first time in her whole life, she was treated with regard. So she multiplied her effort to find the solution, not because she wanted to impress the king, but because she wanted her people to be free from the grip of death. It took more than 3 days, and Amara has not reported back to the king. She was busy trying to decode the right combination of herbs that would cure the disease permanently. She worked tirelessly, using her grandmother as a specimen. Amara finally began brewing remedies that slowly healed her grandmother. With that recipe, she was sure to meet with the king and table her assistance. The disease was spreading rapidly and people were dying consistently. Because of how deadly the disease was, every victim was isolated to evade rapid transmission. Unfortunately, the king also became affected, and he was gradually dying, and he was left in isolation. On the 5th day, Amara walked into the palace with her grandmother right behind her. They were led to where the king was. Amara took out some of her recipes and gave them to the king to drink, hoping to heal him. But unfortunately, the king went mute and the whole village was alarmed. Some of the villagers who heard that the king went mute after Amara's concoction gathered themselves together and came to the palace. They bundled Amara and her grandmother and dragged them to the giant hill behind the city to stone them to death. Initially, their presence wasn't needed in the village, and at the slightest opportunity they were given to buy their integrity back, they killed the king. The villagers were angry. The entire village consented to their being stoned to death. No one was ready to listen to Amara and her grandmother explain how the medicine works. Amara was crying her eyes out, regretting ever accepting the king's plea for her assistance. Living peacefully in isolation was 1,000 times better compared to being stoned to death for trying to offer a helping hand. Stones were beginning to fly across the horizon already when someone came from the palace shouting,